Well, hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us. This is a super special day because I'm doing a live interview with Sissy Lu from Book Savvy Reviews, and this is our first time doing the dual screen. So work with us here. We're using a brand new program, so I am going to be testing things out, and it's going to be fun. If you have questions for either of us, feel free to drop those in the chat box below, and we will make sure we get to those before we go off air, if at all possible. Like I said, new program, so if comments don't pop up, apologize. Sorry. All right, so let's jump in. We're going to do our interview. Take it away.
So I will start with the more personal questions. And you had been doing some answering questions in your own little videos. So I'm going to start with this one. What was your first story ever? And I mean first story, like if you were 12, if you had just written a My Little Pony variation. What was your first story about?
Well, I mean, I wrote a lot of stories in school, like, you make the little booklets in kindergarten and all of that. So I don't remember all of those, but I will tell you when we were in the 5th grade. So back in my school, when I was in the 5th grade, that was our middle school. We had 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th in our middle school, which is not the way it is now. And every year we got one of those blank hardcover books that had like 20 pages in it, and we wrote a story. Or one year we wrote a book of poems. And so every year it had a different theme and different things that we had to work with. And I wrote a book in the 5th grade that was inspired by a book series that I really just loved and crushed my heart. It was all about a girl who met this family of raccoons, and the raccoons you're laughing. The raccoons were this family, and you learn these valuable lessons and things through there, but they met this human girl who kind of took care of them a little bit. And so I wrote a story along the lines of that, where there was this family of raccoons and this little girl who met the family of raccoons, and it was just kind of like a 20-page thing about this raccoon family. It was super cute. I had to illustrate it, and it's actually in the other room. I should probably pull that out someday.
Definitely. That's adorable.
So funny, right? I like it. I was obsessed with the raccoons back then, so I thought that was the cutest story. And then we got to sit there and read it and share it with people, so lots of fun.
All right. So the next question, if you could rewrite and twist a favorite childhood TV show, what would it be?
Favorite childhood TV show and twist it. So I have to do a retelling of one of my favorite shows. This is incredibly hard. Are we talking like? Yeah, no, this is really very hard. I was obsessed with some of like the Disney animated series. So like they had the Aladdin movies, but they also had the TV series and the Little Mermaid series. So I loved those. But I also love things like Mary Kate and Ashley. So I would maybe like twist some of their mysteries up. I don't know. Or Full House was great. I don't know how I would do a retelling of that, but like totally love that show. So I guess I would probably latch on to the Disney ones because I can easily retell those, and I would have no idea what to do with real life people.
Well, right, because they kind of did a retelling twist on Fuller House.
I know, which I totally love. I am such a huge fan. I know some people aren't fans of reboots, but I love that one. Like, totally obsessed with it. In fact, I have a story to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you on air. So you and I are going to chat later.
Okay. All right. So you had a villain segment that you just did. And my question is, what is your favorite villain out of Scar, Jafar, Gaston, or Maleficent? Only one. Only one.
Okay, I can only pick one. So I'm going to say that I love Scar's sarcasm, but if I can only pick one, it's Maleficent.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely love it. And I love the retelling they did with Angelina Jolie. Absolutely loved how they did that. That was done so very well. And I would be so in love with an actual like book retelling where it gets really in depth and we see that she's not so evil. Love it. Yeah.
Her origin story, I love that. I loved it.
Absolutely.
Okay, and this one is a little bit more serious.
Oh, serious.
Oh yeah. What is the message you would like young girls to walk away with after reading Golden and jaded.
Oh, okay. All right, so just a little overview. Golden is my retelling of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and Jaded is a dystopian novel where this girl gets thrown into a marriage as a result of her father trying to lead a rebellion and failing, and her new husband is supposed to kill her. And so throughout both of these stories, these girls are thrown into situations where they do not want to be involved. They are asked to do some bad things. They are going through some really bad situations and circumstances. And the overall message, like the big thing, is that you cannot control your circumstances, but you can control how you react to them. And you have to live your life with integrity, and you have to be the bigger person and really make sure you are living your life the right way, despite what is happening to you, despite what people are doing, despite what people are saying. You have the power to have that integrity and to live a life worth living. And so my overall message is to have that integrity and to not let other people change who you are and how you are behaving, and to make the right decisions, even when they are incredibly hard, even when it costs you.
Fantastic answer.
I try.
Okay, and this one is actually really fun. I decided to go the fun one after that.
We like fun. Fun is good.
Okay. This is kind of going back to a couple weeks ago with the book prom that we did. Would you write a prom proposal in Dove's view for your fans?
Okay, so background information. A few weeks ago, I don't even know when it was, back in May maybe, we did book prom where we talked about book boyfriends and book promposals and all that loveliness. You can actually catch the rebroadcast. I think it's bookprom2017.readingtransforms.com, but don't quote me on that. I'm not positive. If you go to resources.readingtransforms.com and type in book prom, you'll definitely find the link to it. But she wants to know if I would write a promposal from Dove to, is it to like us or to Illyria?
Well, to make your fans happy, maybe to us.
I mean, I'm not 100% certain what Dove would do for a promposal, but it would probably involve him running into a burning building. So, I mean, he would have to set something on fire first.
Yeah, save somebody from drowning, something like that.
Some horrible traumatic event has to happen, and then he can propose to you. That's kind of his MO.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for the fun of it, that would kind of be an awesome blog post.
It would.
So I might have to actually think about that. A proposal from Dove Bear, that'd be awesome. Like, oh yes. Okay. We'll do that later. I'll work on that.
Okay. This is another fun question. If the cast of Golden were in high school, what roles would they be?
Oh, dang it. That is hard.
I told you, this is the one that I said, you're going to kill me.
Yeah, she did. She warned me in advance that there was one that I would want time to think about. And I definitely wish I had time to think about it. Okay. So Lowell, who is my villain, he would definitely be like the jock that runs the school. Like, he would be in charge. He would be kind of a bully. He would be crushing people, but you wouldn't see him like beat people up. He would have his little cohorts go and do it. So Lowell would be like the guy you absolutely hate that just was horrible to everyone. Let me see. Eden would be kind of like this loner outcast girl. She would kind of like hang over by herself. She'd be very sarcastic and very dark about everything. So she'd kind of be off on her own. I mean, Dove and Silas are probably like the kind of nerdy, but also really cute, good guy class president type thing. So I feel like they would end up being class president and vice president. Gosh, Berwin. I'm not even sure what Berwin would be. He is kind of in charge of things. Help me out here. I don't know what he would be.
Because he's kind of Papa Bear. I would almost,
Sorry.
it's okay. I'd almost picture him as a recently graduated and potentially wanting to take over the school as the principal. That's what I see. He wants to run it his way.
Guys, he's been there, done that. He's coming back, and he's kind of like overseeing everything.
Yeah, he's coming in and he's taking over.
That's so funny. And I apologize for my phone ringing. My phone rang. I turned it off, but it's connected to my Mac, so it rang on my Mac even after I turned it off. Shadow would definitely be Lowell's enforcer. Like, he'd be the one beating people up. And then Illyria is like the new girl. Illyria is the quirky new girl who shows up with an agenda and then has it totally flipped on its head, and she has to kind of figure out how to survive in the new school. So there we go. I did it.
That's a retelling of your retelling right there.
Once we went through the golden retelling in this dystopian fantasy world, we dropped them into high school and did a contemporary version because that's what we do.
That's what we do. Okay. Let's see. If you were to cast yourself in a novel, what genre would you pick? Fantasy, science fiction, romance, mystery.
Oh. Well, now that's difficult. Okay, so I probably would not choose fantasy unless it was Narnia. Because that's got like magic and all of the stuff that I probably wouldn't survive very well. Science fiction I am all about because I love dystopian societies, and I'm fairly certain that I would do pretty well at surviving that and being able to manage and navigate that world. Romance, that'd be kind of cool. I can't really... I mean, there's thoughts there, but like, we're not going to say that, so... And then, what was the last one?
Mystery.
I love mysteries. I'm such a huge fan of mysteries. Growing up, like, that was my go-to genre. I loved solving mysteries in advance, and I loved watching TV shows and solving it like 15 minutes into the show. And I love doing things like escape rooms where you have to try to figure your way out of these puzzles. So I would be all about mysteries as long as I wasn't the one being murdered in the mystery.
That's a good one. Yep.
With that one caveat, we're good.
Yeah. That would be a fun book to write, an escape room mystery.
Listen, okay, I'm going to tell you all a secret here. My cousin owns an escape room, and I have been plotting in the back of my mind to write some kind of contemporary escape room novel. She doesn't know it yet, but she's going to get her thing featured in my book when I eventually write it someday.
That would be fun.
This is when we tag them in the comments, and they're like, why are they tagging me here? Watch the video, boo. Watch the video.
Okay, and now we're going to move on to your personal book stuff. So what format of book do you prefer? Hardback, paperback, ebook, audiobook?
Okay. So, okay. I have different answers for this. So, hardcover is definitely the prettiest, but paperback is easier to hold up on my live broadcast because I have picked up my book before, and I picked up the hardcover, and because it has a dust jacket, it slides out while I'm live on air, so that's a problem. So hardcover is definitely the prettiest. Paperback is definitely most effective for doing things like this. But as far as reading goes, I actually prefer ebook, and that is for a couple of different reasons. Firstly, I read really fast. I go through books really fast, so I can't really carry multiple books with me. So if I have them on my iPad, perfect. And no one knows what I'm reading, which means when I'm out in public and people want to know what I'm reading, they have to ask me, and then we can have a conversation about whatever book it is. I also like ebook because I can read at night without having a light on because it's illuminated. But then also, I have managed over the years to actually injure my wrists pretty good with all of my photography work and my crochet work and my sewing and all the stuff. And so it's a little bit on the painful side to hold books for me. So it's a lot easier to have that ebook because I can just prop it up on my little iPad easily type thing, and it just makes my life a little bit easier. So ebook, if I can get my hands on an ebook. But for photographing, totally physical.
Yep. All right. What was your favorite childhood book?
Okay. I mean, I have a bunch of books, but because we were talking about that book I wrote earlier, I'm actually going to talk about that one because that was probably the most amazing and traumatic series of my life. So it's a book called Methuselah's Gift, and the sequel is Methuselah's Heart, I believe. And it is this amazing story about this family of raccoons, and you learn all these values and all these moral lessons, and it's amazing. And then it gets down to the very end of the book, and one of them has to make the sacrifice, and it just rips your heart out. It's so horrible. This was one of those books. It was like it was like this thick, and it was a middle grades book, and this was back when my mom used to read to my sister and I at night. So even as we got older, we did reading time as a family, and she would stand in the hallway between our rooms, and she would read the story to us. I don't know if she read this one in advance or not, but we were all sobbing. It was the worst thing ever. It was so traumatic and dramatic and beautiful and amazing and life-changing. So I'm going to count that as my favorite book of my childhood because it was so one of those things that like latched onto you and just never left you. And it's traumatic to this day when you see that cover.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that does sound like a traumatic childhood book.
So awful and so good. Like, I recommend it to everybody. Such a good series, especially for kids. Like, it teaches so much and it instills so many values. And there's so much room for conversation in there on how you are as a person and how to behave and how to treat people, how to take care of people and how people are taking care of you. And it's just so, so good, but it will rip your heart out.
So that's where you learned it.
Yeah. Okay, fun facts, guys. For those of you who are not one of my elite advanced readers for Jaded, I gave out a couple of early copies to people, and they're a little bit mad at me. And we have a support group, and some names have been called.
Mm-hmm.
That explains my viciousness, I guess.
How often do you read outside of your comfort zone? So if you're a fantasy girl, how often do you read outside of that?
That's an interesting question. I am one of those like I like sci-fi a lot. Like that's where I like to live. I read some fantasy. I read contemporary. Contemporary is not my biggest thing. Like, I don't absolutely love contemporary, but there are a couple of authors who I adore. Like, I latched onto them, absolutely adore them, would put down other books to read their books. But for the most part, I'm not the biggest fan of contemporary, but I do read it fairly often because I review for a lot of authors and I hang out with a lot of authors, and a lot of them are contemporary writers. So I would say that's a little bit outside of my comfort zone just because it's not like my happy place where I like to live. And they're okay, but they're not like, oh my gosh, I have to read all of these. So if that's what you count as outside of your comfort zone, you fairly recently, or fairly frequently, that's the word I was looking for. But, like super outside, probably not very much, just because I don't have a lot of time. So when I do have time, I read what I like.
Good point. How do you feel about mature subjects in YA? Example, sex or violence?
Well, I mean, I feel like because it is young adult, a lot of that is really unnecessary. I do not like specific things, and I don't like a lot of in-depth things. So I get that it's an industry thing that it happens, but I don't necessarily think we need to be super graphic about it or super in-depth or super focused on it. Like, if it's going to happen, let it maybe be off-page. Maybe just allude to it. But I also, in my mind, kind of separate violence from sexual content. So I'm okay with a little violence as long as we're not, like, crazy. I know I have some torture stuff going on in some of my books. And I have had someone comment on that. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to some violence as long as it's not, like, crazy insane. But I also am very, big on telling people that it's there. So I do warn people that I have torture scenes before I let them read it, and I'm not going to recommend my book with torture scene in it to like a 12-year-old. That's just not going to happen. So I make sure if I'm talking to people that I let them know, hey, this is the type of content. If you're not okay with what's in similar books that I know people have read, so I frequently say, if you had issues with Hunger Games, if you had issues with Divergent, don't read my books. Or be aware that there's some violence in it like that. But within my own personal books, I stay away from a lot of the sexual stuff because I don't like that. I don't want that in there, and I don't want people to be reading that within my books if it's not necessary. I feel like it's not necessary at that age. So, and the thing is, I used to teach, and so I had a lot of younger students who were like all about going for my books, and I'm not okay with that being in there for them. So I'm kind of like protecting my kids. That's what I'm doing. So I definitely, tell people what's in there first and then let them make their own decisions. And I would hope parents are smart enough to check out what their kids are reading before their kids are reading it so that they can, tell them not to read it or have a conversation about what it's about so that, it's handled in the right way.
Okay. What is your policy on book lending?
On book lending? Oh, that's a scary thing. It's a very scary thing because people do not take care of your books the way that you take care of your books. So I'm okay with certain people borrowing my books if I know they'll take care of them. Like I have this one friend, she and I are like huge book lovers, and I would be totally okay with her handing her my book and saying, here you go. She's totally okay with handing me things and saying, here you go. But some of my other people, not so much. So, fun story, my dad got a copy of my book, and he lent it to somebody, and it came back destroyed. I didn't know this was going to happen, and I found it on the table, and I was just like, what happened? They go, it was in her backpack. A little girl, we need to have a conversation about what you put in your backpack and how you take care of things. That was not your book. So, it's a horrifying thing. It's an absolutely horrifying thing. So there are certain people totally all about sharing. Other people, maybe not so much.
All right. Are you able to read in another language? And if so, do you have a favorite language to read in?
Oh, that's fun. Okay. So in high school, I took Spanish for 4 years, then I took it a little bit in college, and then I spent a couple of days in Argentina. And at that point, I was fairly fairly fluent. I cannot use my words today. I was fairly fluent. I was actually able to do some translating, and I could read things in Spanish. So back then, I could totally read books in Spanish. I could have conversations in Spanish, and it was great. I loved it. I loved reading stories in Spanish for class. But I never really got my hands on like a novel where I was going through it unless it was part of the classwork. So back then, totally. Now I've lost a lot of that. So I could like 80% figure out what's going on in a Spanish book, but maybe not all the way. I could probably get it from context. But yeah, definitely I love Spanish. I always wanted to learn French, but you were only allowed to take one language in high school and I had to choose. I figured Spanish was the smarter choice because more people spoke it. So if I had the opportunity to learn French and then read French books, that would be a great answer too. So at this point, pretty much I'm sticking to English because I lost a lot of my Spanish. But at one point, I was able to read Spanish books and absolutely loved it.
Great. Do you break or crack the spines of your books?
No, because that breaks the books. It breaks the binding, and then it has more of a likelihood of ripping and falling apart and destroying my beautiful books. So I get really freaked out when I have books that have that break in them, or if somebody does that. Now, if it's something like a library book that it's already been done to, cool, fine, whatever. But if it's like not broken, we don't do that, guys. We don't. That's like, you monster, don't do that.
And that was the last question. So you answered like close to like 20 questions.
20 questions in 24 minutes, guys. We did it. Somebody should go through this feed and actually count how many questions I just answered and kind of like roundabout answered.
Yeah.
I feel like there were a couple I didn't quite answer, but I kind of talked my way in a circle around it.
Yeah, I threw in some hard ones, so
You did. And I figured out the school thing, so that was good.
Yep.
That was a little bit hard. Yep. I feel like I'm gonna have to have my artist actually like sketch out these characters in high school form. Like
I would love that.
Right?
I would really love that. And I would love to see Smarmy.
There's always these articles I find on Facebook from like different magazines and things that are like, if the Disney princesses went to your high school, this is what they would look like and this is what they would do. So we should totally do that for Golden. And I feel like if we did that in Jaded, that would be really interesting too. We can't give too much away because Smarmy has not been introduced to the world, but I'm just like picturing him in your Letterman's jacket with some leather going on there, just like leaning against a locker. Just like that. The muscles out, like
guns out, guns out.
That would so be him, guys. That would so incredibly be him. Oh my gosh. And Roan would be like, we're just gonna answer this now.
Yes, go ahead.
Roan would be over in the art wing, like hanging out doing creative stuff. Jade would be like hanging out in the family consumer science room and the music room and just like all artsy and lovely and baking and stuff. And she'd be very academically inclined, straight A student, you know, class president type deal.
Hi, Ev.
We've got a guest.
What are you doing?
I think so.
Hi, sweetie.
You did. You say hi?
Hi, sweetie. You're not on camera. Lean a little further.
Come here.
Lean my mommy. Hi, baby.
Say hi.
Hi. Are you Team Dove?
Yes, she said yes.
She sent me a video of her saying Team Dove the other day, and I just loved it. She also had some things to say about Smarmy. If you want to see those, you can jump onto my social media platforms because it's an adorable video of her talking about Smarmy from Jaded.
Oh, you blew a kiss. She blew a kiss.
You're so cute. You're so funny.
You go in the bedroom. Okay? Thank you.
Well, if you did not realize, guys, we were both wearing flower crowns before we jumped on this live broadcast. For days, we've been talking about doing this live broadcast, and we decided we have this passion for floral crowns, so we both made sure we were wearing our flowers today. So if you have a floral crown, we would love to see a picture of that. Go ahead, snap a picture. You can put it on your Instagram stories. You can put it on your Instagram feed. You can put it on your Facebook feed, but then make sure you are tagging us in it so that we can see what you are doing for Floral Crown Friday. That worked out nicely, huh? This was inspired by a recent AMA that I did. I was outside. I had a floral crown on with some beautiful white flowers, and I had this one little thing that kept poking me in the eye. It was driving me crazy, and so we decided we had to do it on this broadcast. This is not the offending floral crown, as you can see. I still haven't fixed those. I actually need to do that. But we wanted to make sure we jumped on and had this really great interview. Thank you so much for joining me. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you and your book reviews.
You can find me at www.booksavvyreviews.com. You can find me on Instagram at booksavvysissy. And you can find me on YouTube. Sissy Lu is Book Savvy Reviews.
Fantastic. And of course, you can always hit me up at k.m.robinson books on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. You can also hang out on my website, k.m.robinson books. What did I just say? Did I give k.m. Robinson Books on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat? I really have no idea what I just said. I want to make sure I got the right one because I have been talking about reading Transforms all day, and I had to make sure I had the right one. You can also hit me up on my website, k.m.robinsonbooks.com. You can hang out with my publisher, SnowyWingsPublishing.com, or at Snowy Wings Pub on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can see what we've got going on over there because we've got some really cool things. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you want to do a live interview with me, let me know because this was awesome. This was super fun. And I would love to do this again, especially because Jaded comes out in under 2 weeks. So on June 27th, we have the release of Jaded, which is my brand new series, the first book in the Jaded duology. And it is amazing. I'm really excited. I've been getting some great reviews. Sissy Lu has actually read it. Real quick, just tell them why they should read Jaded for me.
I can't really sum that up.
It's hard, right?
Honestly, if I were to compare it to a kind of tango, because that's what I compare it to, it's kind of like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith battling back and forth. I felt like that. Like, you never really know how it's gonna work out, and it gripped me from the beginning. So
I love that. I absolutely love that. Now I have to make a quote graphic being like, if you've watched this movie, you need to read this book.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sissy Lu. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. We definitely need to do this again because you have the world's hardest questions. She sends me a lot behind the scenes for me to do in some of my videos. So fun times. And if you have questions for me, hit up the comments below and I will get that answered in a new live broadcast or a pre-recorded episode of one of my shows or just over on my other platform. I was going to say Instagram, but I'm like YouTube. On YouTube and Instagram and all of those lovely things. It's been a day, guys. It has been a day. So thank you so much for joining me. If you happen to be watching live right now, if you jump onto Instagram, we are also doing a special event where I've partnered with a number of authors. We are doing Shake Your Pages, which is a dancing author shout out over on Instagram stories. So we're kind of like bobbing around in a weird dorky way on Instagram stories and shouting out some amazing authors and books that you need to be checking out. So I hope you'll come check that out over on my Instagram stories at k.m.robinson books, and then join me by doing your own Shake Your Pages stories on your Instagram stories and shout out some amazing people that other fans need to know about. I'm K.m. Robinson, author of the Golden Trilogy and the Jada Duology, joined by Sissy Lu of Book Savvy Reviews. Thank you so much for joining us. You guys have a great day and stay inspired.